Hello everybody, what's going on? It's a brand new week, it's a new day, it's a new time as well. What's going on everyone? How you doing? NJChef here, your Cosmic Dragon VTuber, and we are ready once again. I'm very excited, can you tell? I am ready once again to dive right back into the absolute madhouse that is Warhammer 40K lore, because today, we are diving right into it. We are going to be talking today about what many would consider the most numerous and potentially one of the strongest military forces under the purview of the Imperium of mankind. That being the Imperial Guard, or if you want to be really fancy about it, the Astra Militarum. I mean, to be fair, a lot when that name change dropped, when that name change took effect a few editions ago, I forget actually when that name change occurred, but regardless, the way they sort of differentiate that in canon in the 40K lore is that Astra Militarum is their official designation as written in High Gothic, which is the main language of the Imperium. Let me rephrase that, the main language of the Imperium's elite, the upper crust, as it were, the bureaucrats, the high-ranking generals, etc., etc. To everyone else in the wider Imperium, and to the soldiers within the Guard themselves, they refer to themselves as the Imperial Guard, or Guardsmen. They are, unlike the Space Marines, which we kicked this series off with, they have no genetic modification at all. They don't go through any of the genetic modifications, the body modifications, the strict gene seed training that the superhumans of the Adeptus Astartes subject themselves to. No, the Imperial Guard are, for all intents and purposes, your everyday, run-of-the-mill, average Joe Schmo human beings. They go through military training. Sometimes, we'll get to that. They go through just enough military training to know what end of the las gun you point at the enemy. And they're marched out onto the various battlefields in the thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of soldiers under the many different banners and regiments of the Imperial Guard, and there are quite a few storied regiments in the Imperial Guard. But what they lack in sheer augmentation, firepower, and specialized training that all the Space Marines and Adeptus Astartes go through, they make up for in sheer numbers. So, an average squad of Space Marines. Let me put this into perspective for you, chat. Okay? Your average squad of Space Marines will number anywhere from 5 Marines, which is known as a combat squad, up to a full squad of Space Marines, which maxes out at 10. And for most operations, for most high-risk Alpha Strike sort of infiltration operations, that will be fine. 10 Space Marines is more than enough to handle any sort of non-large-scale engagement that a Space Marine chapter or a military commander will require them to do. Okay? You send 5 guardsmen to do anything, they're going to get evaporated before they even get to their target. That's why most guardsmen platoon squads will number in the 10s or 20s, Some will even form combined units of just 40 strong infantry, armed with just nothing but their regular flak armor, their trusty lasgun, and if all else fails, stick a bayonet at the end and just charge at the enemy. It's a bit of a meme. It is a bit of a meme in the 40K community and the 40K fandom that, you know, when all else fails, bayonet charge. It is a bit of a meme, but like, given how many numbers, given the sheer numbers that Astra Militarum or Imperial Guard forces can field, listen, when you've got 40 screaming troops rushing at you, bayonets drawn, something's gonna die. You know, again, I'm gonna harken back to a phrase I used during our Space Marines episode of Warhammer 40K Lore Deep Dive. And that being, while a lot of the military commanders with the Imperium of mankind view, and you know, obviously the chapter masters and captains of the Space Marines themselves also, they will view the Space Marines as the scalpel, as a syringe, a targeted strike to destroy key elements of the enemy, or to just straight up destroy leadership elements of the enemy army, leaving them in utter disarray and to be destroyed one key portion at a time. The Imperial Guard are much more like a sledgehammer, a shotgun. They are not subtle, but the way they wage war, the destruction they bring to a battlefield when they are fielded en masse, is wide, is varied, and above all, is incredibly, incredibly thorough in its utter destruction. Where a Space Marine battle will usually involve maybe 50 to 100 Space Marines if the battle is large enough, and that's considering how well structured and how rigidly structured Space Marine chapters are designed to be. That is already a lot of resources. You've got guardsmen being fielded in the tens, possibly even hundreds of thousands of troops. And that's not just including the infantry, that's including all of their support as well. Scout sentinels, armored troop transports, chimeras, specialty weapon tanks, the Rogel Dorn tank, the much vaunted Lehman Russ battle tank, and lest we forget their artillery, such as a Death Strike missile launcher, the Earthshaker cannons on the Basilisk tanks, and probably the biggest tank we'll take a look at today before we go on to some other factions in the future, the terrifying Baneblade, which has, count 'em, 11 different guns on it. We'll get there, I promise. We'll get there, I promise. In general, the Imperial Guard are recruited from any world that is fit to sustain life within the Imperium's fold. Although, more intrepid commanders, regimental advisors, etc., they will usually recruit from worlds where the populace has already, shall we say, faces challenges on a daily basis, or whose populace is already made up of individuals who are willing to fight and die for something on a daily basis. So, death worlds, hive worlds, hell, some Imperial Guard regiments will recruit directly from penal worlds, you know, like prison planets, as a way to give the, any aspiring or, dare I say, unwilling prisoner a way out. You know, serve in the Guard and you will earn your freedom. What they don't tell you is that you might die on the way there. in general, most prospective soldiers for an Imperial, any given Imperial Guard regiment will be trained, either raised to be part of the Guard from birth, or are taken in and trained sufficiently to the point where they can, at the very least, start following orders as to not die on the battlefield. And that there's different rankings, there's different levels to the Imperial Guard structure that we will look at. But in general, your rank and file soldier within the Astra Militarum, within the Imperial Guard, is known as the Guardsmen. They, as you can see right here, are the lowest rung of the totem pole when it comes to the Imperial Guard command hierarchy, as we shall see here. These are your foot soldiers. These are your rank and file warriors. These are the people, the men and women, because unlike Space Marines, who don't allow women into their ranks for, shall I say, oddly specific lore reasons? I digress. The TLDR, men and women serve alongside one another in the Imperial Guard. And they say they get the short end of the stick in the absolutely wild, ridiculously insane setting that is Warhammer 40K is probably an understatement of the century. Because they face down against all manner of aliens, eldritch horrors, chaos gods, rogue Space Marine chapters, chaos Space Marine chapters. The list goes on and on. They are... I don't want to say cannon fodder, because that's generally an insult to every Imperial Guard player out there, but there are some commanders within the Imperial Guard's hierarchy that will view their run-of-the-mill foot soldiers as just that, entirely expendable. There will be some unfortunate military commanders in the Imperial Guard that view their soldiers as a means to an end. You know, the only thing they care about is their own personal glory, their own titles, etc., etc., etc. So they won't hesitate. They won't hesitate at all to throw thousands, hundreds, tens of thousands of soldiers into a desperate, never-ending meat grinder. You know, not caring how many lives are essentially wasted in a campaign, if it means finally, ultimately getting some sort of victory that makes themselves look good. Which is unfortunate, but that is the grim reality of Warhammer 40K in general. There are not a lot of happy endings, unfortunately. There are, however, should any prospective guardsman survive, you know, not just basic training, but their first encounter, there are ways for a guardsman to earn their way up the ladder and to work their way up the ladder in the command structure of the Imperial Guard. For example, some can be trained to be field medics. They will operate out of company command squads. They'll operate within regimental squads, keeping their fellow guardsmen patched up and ready to fight as much as they can on an ever-changing and incredibly dangerous battlefield. Some can be promoted to standard bearers, who, you know, will either be given the honor of holding their company's battle standard or the entire regiment's battle standard. This is a position that is held for the entire lifespan of the guardsman who is chosen for it, which can either be the longest position a guardsman will serve or the shortest, depending on how bloody the battlefield is, shall we say. But this is considered a position of high honor because they serve alongside the commanders and the generals and like the command squadrons of the highest echelon of an Imperial Guard regiment. Much in the same vein as a Vox operator were. These are basically your on-the-field communications officers within not just entire Imperial Guard regiments, but within entire command squads. Different platoons will have them. The way the Imperial Guard differs, not just in numbers versus training of Space Marines, for example. The Space Marine squads and Space Marine chapters, rather, are trained from birth, essentially, to be self-sufficient on a battlefield. They are set to be their own operative, because each Space Marine is essentially worth an entire squad of guardsmen, given the time and resources into creating a Space Marine, correct? So they act on initiative. They will follow orders from their squad sergeant, from their commander, from their captain, their chapter master, etc., etc. But in general, Space Marines are given a lot of leeway to operate as they see fit on a battlefield because of their martial training and their martial prowess. Guardsmen, not so much. They need orders from the top down. That is just how Imperial Guard military command is built. A guardsman squad cannot function without receiving orders from their squadron leader, who in turn receives orders either from the general, the commissar, the lord commander, etc., etc. Whoever is at the head, whoever is in control of the army at that moment is the one who is issuing orders to the rest of the army, and that the people who relay said orders to the troops on the ground are the Vox operators, the communications officers. You know, they are the lifeblood of what makes an Imperial Guard regiment the well-oiled fighting machine it's supposed to be. Then you've got your weapons specialists, guardsmen who are trusted enough to be given a entire swath of weaponry beyond the normal standard issue las gun or las rifle, as it were. They get access to specialty weapons such as plasma guns, heavy bolters, melt-a-guns, flamers. They can either be attached piecemeal to certain command squads, or they can be grouped together in entire squads of just special weapons teams. The most common sort of special weapons team existing within the Imperial Guard's command structure are grenadiers, and they start off with a grenade launcher each, which is pretty solid, but you can branch out from there. I mean, just imagine an Imperial Guard special weapons squad full of nothing but plasma guns, flamers, melta-weaponry. You know, just the only thing you have to worry about is A, being a higher priority target for whatever enemy you happen to be facing, and B, the running risk of the very plasma gun that you're using exploding when you pull the trigger and killing you immediately. Because that is an unfortunate, very, very unfortunate reality of plasma weaponry in the 41st millennium. Veterans are probably... No, not even probably. Veterans are a very sought-after commodity in any Imperial Guard regiment. These are guardsmen, these are soldiers who have literally survived in the trenches of warfare, who have survived campaign after campaign after deadly enemy after deadly encounter, to the point where they are trusted as not just advisors or squad leaders, but are kept together in veteran squads and given a bit more, given a bit more leniency in how they operate on the battlefield because of their veteran status. Sometimes a platoon, or hell, even an entire regiment, over the course of wars and campaigns and bloody encounters, will be whittled down from the thousands to the hundreds to the dozens. I'll touch on this later, but there's one famous guard regiment, or shall I say, a remnant of a guard regiment, that is the only survivor of their entire planet. So, having veterans who are that hardened, that, stoic, that, brave within your own Imperial Guard regiment, they are to be treasured, honestly. Another rank, or shall I say specialty, that a guardsman can find themselves in often is an offshoot of the weapon specialists. These are your heavy gunners. These are the ones who are grouped into who are grouped into teams of 2 or 3, manning a static heavy weapons platform. Las cannons, mortar launchers, missile launchers, heavy flamers, heavy bolters, plasma cannons, missile launcher. I already said missile launchers. Anyway, these can be seconded to a Imperial Guard platoon, where they will move along, move with that platoon, providing heavy weapons fire on the go, or they can be grouped together in dedicated heavy weapons squads, anchored down onto a specific point of the battlefield and providing covering fire or even anti-vehicle heavy fire to help supplement the larger Imperial Guard war machine, as it were. And these are also a very high priority target for any enemies who are facing down the Imperial Guard, and therefore they're often supplemented with screens of infantry to help keep them covered, because a heavy weapons team is worth their weight in gold as far as most Imperial Guard regimental commanders are concerned. So I briefly touched on this earlier, right? I briefly touched on this earlier in how some Imperial Guard regiments will offer service within the Guard regiment as a way for prisoners to earn, quote-unquote, earn their freedom by serving in Imperial Guard regiment, correct? Some Imperial Guard regiments take it a bit further. These are what is known as the penal legions. Entire Imperial Guard regiments made up of nothing but prisoners and conscripts from prison worlds. Political prisoners on certain Imperial planets. They're all grouped together, given nothing but a knife and a las gun, and shuffled onto the battlefield with a simple order. You fight, you either earn your freedom or you get your sentence reduced. The only other option is death. And I mean that quite literally, chat. I mean that quite literally, because with most penal legions, let me see if this picture actually shows it, because if this picture actually shows it, yeah, it does. Holy crap, it does. Okay. You see that around the neck of this poor penal legionnaire, this poor prisoner right here? Him and every other prisoner on this battlefield is fitted with an explosive collar. Because some prisoners will say, okay, fine, we'll serve in the regiment, and the moment they make landfall on a planet, they'll try and run, they'll try and escape, because they're thinking, okay, These idiots just brought me, unsupervised, to a whole new planet. I can make a run for it, and if I elude my captors, I can start a new life here under a new name and go back to, you know, I'm out of prison, I'm free as a bird, wash my hands of it, I'm done. That's not how this works, because they thought of that. If an Imperial Guard commander, for whatever reason, decides that one of their legionnaires is attempting to flee or is not following an order that was given to them, all they need to do is press one button on a control console, and that collar will detonate, instantly killing the poor bastard who tried to flee. And that, in turn, or just even the threat of that, is enough to keep all the rest of his penal legionnaires and fellow criminals in check and in line long enough to follow orders and take out their aggression on the enemy. and just to hammer home the absolute dark brutality of the Warhammer 40K universe, let's say the campaign doesn't go as planned. Let's say they get routed. Let's say they get absolutely destroyed in the process. Well, you just freed up room on a prison planet. Go to the next one, go to the next hab block, go to the next prison planet, grab more and try again. In an empire that is as large and as spans as many worlds in the galaxy as the Imperium of Man, if you lose an entire regiment of penal legionnaires, it is literally a drop in the bucket, because they have other worlds they can go to. It is dark as hell. I know, I understand that. That is just what happens in Warhammer, in this specific instance of Warhammer, because, like, I made mention that sometimes Imperial Guard commanders don't give a second thought to the lives of the men and women that they will send into war, that they will send into battle. And this is just that sentiment taken to the nth degree, because in their mind, who the hell is going to care about a whole bunch of prisoners who are on death row anyway, most likely. TLDR, you don't want to be here. You don't want to be in this situation at all. Absolutely not. On the other end of that spectrum, if, let's say, you, as an Imperial Guard soldier, survives, A, B, manages to work his or her way up the ranks, you know, maybe you become a platoon commander yourself, maybe you take up a specialty role like special weapons team or Voxcastar operator, etc., etc. Let's say you did enough to be noticed by the upper brass, the command structure of your Imperial Guard regiment. You then might be promoted to the rank of Tempestus Scion, or Imperial Guard Stormtrooper. They have better armor than your normal guardsmen and have access to much better weaponry than the normal guardsmen as well. They have to go through some more extra training, but these essentially are the shock troops, the drop troops of the Imperial Guard war machine. Because these, yeah, here we go. Because the Tempestus Scions, aka the Imperial Guard Stormtroopers, they are the ones who are flown in behind enemy lines on flying transports like these Valkyries or these Vultures up here. They are the ones dropped behind enemy lines. They are the ones who disrupt enemy communications networks, cut off enemy supply lines, eliminate key members of the enemy's command structure. You see what I'm getting at here. They are the ones who are dropped into the most dangerous theaters of war on a battlefield, and it is for that reason why they A, need specialty training, and B, need better equipment than their rank-and-file brethren, shall we say. And what separates them in their basic kit from a normal guardsman is... Give me a moment here. Here we go. Astra Militarum war gear. Or was it weaponry? It probably was weaponry, since I'm thinking of a gun at this point. Good job, me. Okay. Where is the las gun? There is the las gun. Okay. Small detour. Small detour. This is your basic weapon for your everyday rank and file Imperial Guardsmen. This is the las gun. It is the most basic, most commonly used, and I believe the most mass-produced weapon that your rank and file Imperial Guardsmen can wield. It is a laser rifle. For all intents and purposes, it is a laser rifle. And it comes in a gajillion different variants. It comes in a gajillion different variants. But I believe... yeah. Hang on a moment. I need to open up a few more pictures here. Yeah, it comes in a gajillion different variants, but this is your basic weapon for all of the Imperial Guard. It's if I had to equate it, to a modern day counterpart, right? The las gun is to the Imperial Guard what the M16 assault rifle is to the United States military. Except the las gun is not an automatic, nor is it a semi-automatic weapon. When I say las rifle, it is literally like a combat rifle. Like what is it? What is that army rifle they used a lot for American soldiers in World War II? The M1 Garand. I would more liken the Imperial Guard las gun to the M1 Garand. And much like that gun, you can... There it is. I made this joke earlier, but when I say fix bayonets, like every Imperial Guardsman will understand that command. They will understand what is at stake the moment their platoon commander or regimental commander or commissar, and we'll get to the commissar shortly, issues the order to fix bayonets, because it is at that point that it is literally time for death or glory. You are about to charge headlong into enemy lines, and you are either going to die by the time you get there, or you're going to take somebody out with you. But that tangent was basically to say that what the Scions, the stormtroopers, are equipped with is a souped-up version of your humble las gun, which is officially known as a hotshot las gun, but more generally is termed a hell gun. So, let me actually reopen this back here, because I need to point this out. It is a very important point here. Here we go. What the las gun, your normal las gun, runs off of is this power pack right here. It's basically a giant battery. But what's really cool about this little battery pack here is it holds enough charge for one las gun to fire off about 60 shots before the pack needs to be reloaded or replaced. And the cool thing about these las gun power packs is they're actually solar powered, or they can be solar powered in a pinch. For example, imagine you're in a long sort of siege situation as a guardsman, you're manning your post, you realize you run out of ammo, right? The next ammo jockey isn't coming around for a little bit, you're out of spare power nodes. What you could do is take this power pack, set it out where you know there's going to be a lot of sunlight, and in a matter of, say, a couple of hours, you know, your power pack's going to ding because it's just been fully recharged again from the sunlight. Which is cool. You know, it takes way longer to recharge it that way than with like a charging station or just swapping it out for another power pack. But that is what the standard, their bog standard lasgun will run on. The hell guns or the hotshot lasguns that the scions wield. You see this cable? You see the cable that's there on both of the hell gun and the hotshot lasgun? This cable connects to the power pack back here on the back of the scion, right? Perfect. Even better. Hang on a second. Looking at actual Tempestus Scion miniature. Let's go. That backpack, it holds two things. Well, you know, a few things. It's got their equipment in it, you know. It's got their knives, their secondary weapons, etc. It's got a communications array in it because it's linked up to this helmet cam as well as the Vox caster within the helmet itself. But most importantly, it holds the power pack for the hell gun. And unlike the normal las guns, these things are semi-automatic. So you can pop off one shot if you pull the trigger, or if you squeeze the trigger, it's going to keep on firing. And the only thing that's going to limit your rate of fire is your finger. Because these battery packs of the hell guns last a long, long time. Scions are not just deployed for dangerous missions, for like specialty missions, dropping in behind enemy lines. They also serve as the main bodyguards to the upper echelon of an Imperial Guard regiment's command structure. These are the bodyguards for the regimental commander, for the platoon commander, for the for the Lord Commander of an entire campaign. So that is why they require such extra training and extra equipment. The Tempestus Scions, aka the Imperial Guard Stormtroopers, are your elites of the Imperial Guard army. I'm going to quickly run through these three right here because not every regiment will utilize these three specific roles. Certain regiments will, but not all of them. First up, we have the Rough Riders. These are mounted Imperial Guard troopers who basically fulfill the role of cavalry within an Imperial Guard army. And we'll get to the dude on a dinosaur in a moment. But this mounted cavalry unit of Imperial Guard, they are the ones who, if you think of like classical warfare, and you know how a well-timed cavalry charge can turn the entire tide of battle. And I know what you're saying to yourself. I know you're probably asking me right now, Chef, how the fuck does a dude on a horse remain relevant in the 41st millennium? Let me tell you. Let me tell you. There are ways. There are ways. There are entire regiments who specialize in shit like this. For example, the Attilan Rough Riders. This is an Imperial Guard regiment that specializes in just exactly in this form of warfare. The planet that they come from has a lot of grasslands, some would even say steps on the planet in which they can raise their horses, and just because of the culture of the planet, they've embraced this sort of cavalry unit, right? And now I know what you're thinking to yourself. Okay, so but what is a spear gonna do against something as heavily armored as this Orkillakan here, right? Well, that's not just a spear. I mean, let me rephrase that. Yes, it is a spear, but behind it, just behind the spear, this little pocket right here. Actually, the newer Attilan Rough Rider miniatures show it off better. Behind the spear tip is an explosive charge, very much akin to a grenade, or even a melta charge, right? So the spear tip will embed itself in whatever they charge in. The grenade, and it will then break off this lance, like this long part here, and then as the rider and his steed are riding away, the charge detonates. And the charge has two settings. You can either set it as fragmentation, where it will be a burst and will send out shrapnel as well as a concussive wave and deal damage to tightly packed enemy infantry, or it could be a tank buster charge, which is what this poor Killakan right here learned the hard way. They'll charge at enemy armor. The spear tip will pierce through or get stuck on some part of the enemy vehicle or even giant enemy monster, because this kind of weapon is also very good at knocking out, say, Tyranid bioforms as well as it is enemy tanks, right? And then it will detonate in a much larger explosion, piercing through the armor of the vehicle and either killing whoever is on the other side, or let's say it hits something vital like ammo storage or the fuel tank of the enemy tank, which will cause a bigger explosion, which will cause the enemy tank to no longer exist and be replaced with a crater in the ground that is now smoking. You get what I'm going at. You get what I'm going for. Imperial Guard regiments still, even in the 41st millennium, will make use of a well-timed cavalry charge. It is a tried and true method. Another sort of famed rider unit, I don't know why I was struggling with that word, are the Death Riders of Krieg, which belong to a much larger, more well-known Imperial Guard regiment, and I'll go through a few of the really well-known Imperial Guard regiments, known as the Death Corps of Krieg. But this unit in particular, the Death Riders, are known by that moniker for their absolutely ridiculous... Oh, beautiful! There's so many more down here. Yay! Shout out to the Lexicana for all these awesome images. The Death Riders have been given that moniker because of not just them, but this pervading sense within the Death Corps of Krieg that, like, to serve until one's death is the highest honor one can give in service to the Imperium. And by extension, the God Emperor of Mankind, correct? Correct. So, they are known for some particularly ludicrous and nigh-on suicidal cavalry charges. They will ride en masse against massed orc hordes, the chittering masses of Tyranid bioforms. They will ride down against the hulking chaos monstrosities, chaos demons, demon engines, the Dark Mechanicum. Nothing phases them. If they die, fine, they die. But their mission before they die is to take down 1 to as many enemies with them as they can. That is why they are known in that fashion, the Death Riders, the Death Corps of Krieg. very grim, very dark, as it is in Warhammer 40K usually. But, oh right, doing the dinosaur. So, some planets, whenever you recruit for an Imperial Guard Legion, they won't have horses, or even maybe they won't have the technology, or the needed technology rather, to make bionic horses or mounts of some kind to equip their own mounted units, much like in the jungle death world of Catachin. So what they do have on Catachin are these little raptors, and they serve just as well as a horse will. They're just raptors instead of horses. Warhammer 40K is wild, and it is silly, and I love it when it's silly. Imperial Guard sharpshooters are just that. Guardsmen who have a higher knack for picking off targets at longer ranges than their fellows within the Imperial Guard. And for that reason, they are given, essentially, sniper duty. They are given a modified las rifle, or what they call a long las, which has a better scope and a much, much longer range, just not as high of a... Where's the phrase I'm looking for? Rate of fire. Thank you, brain. That is it. Higher rate of fire, or as high of a rate of fire as a normal las gun. But they are basically your snipers. They are the snipers of the Imperial Guard, and they pick off their chosen target at long range. There are other snipers within the Imperial Guard that are not just human snipers. We'll get to the auxiliaries within the Imperial Guard soon enough. Don't you worry. Hey, Bahamut, what's going on? Yeah, welcome. We are... this is our... Let me try that phrase again, without stumbling over my words this time. We are on our next episode of Warhammer 40K Lore Deep Dive, and we are talking all things Imperial Guard, or Astra Militarum, if you want to use the new nomenclature. And we are just going through all the different specialties that a guardsman can fill. Speaking of which, scouts. Space Marines have scouts. Imperial Guard have scouts. They are basically the vanguard of the much larger Imperial Guard regiment, and they are the ones that will scout ahead, look for enemy movement, spot enemy movement, relay that to the rest of the Imperial Guard regiment, communication structure, etc., etc., and they are the ones that will dictate, where the next flow, where the army as a whole will strike next. Very simple. Very simple. Operators are your pilots for all the different machines of war that the Imperial Guard march to war with, because it is not just infantry. It is not just infantry and specialty infantry that the Guard go to war with. They have hundreds of different vehicles that they march to war with, not just as troop transports, but as specialty war machines like this Sentinel Walker here, which is essentially, if you're a fan of Star Wars like me, this should look very familiar to you, because this is essentially a one-man version of the AT-ST Scout Walker. However, it can be modified. It can be, have different weaponry other than just a heavy flamer. You could have a auto gun on there. You could have a plasma gun on there, a las cannon on there. It is fast. It operates independently from the main body of the Imperial Guard. You can use them as scout walkers. You can use them as there's a heavier variant known as the Armored Sentinel, which has an enclosed canopy instead of an open canopy like this. And you can use them to hunt down enemy vehicles or enemy targets independently from the main body of the army. And the operators are the people who are the pilots of war machines such as these. Breachers, basically an offshoot of a grenadier. These are your explosive experts of the Imperial Guard. And finally, remember when I said that your basic guardsman was the lowest on the totem pole of the Imperial Guard command structure and army structure? That was sort of a white lie. There is one rung lower than a guardsman, and that is a conscript. Or, to use the Cadian term for conscript, that is a white shield, as denoted by the white stripe on their helmet. These are men and women of the Imperial Guard who have been, obviously, conscripted into service within the Imperial Guard, and they are given the most basic of basic training. They are given basic training with the las gun, given basic training with their gear. They are formed up into squads and are marched onto the battlefield and are told you will learn everything else you need to know on the battlefield, even though like 90% of them are probably going to get annihilated the moment they step out into an active war zone. These are your draftees. These poor bastards are like, I didn't want to call a normal guardsman a meat shield. The conscripts, alongside the penal legionnaires, are definitely your meat shields for the rest of your army. They are not trained nearly as well as a normal guardsman. I mean, do some white shields actually survive a war zone long enough to eventually make their way up to being a full-fledged guardsman? Absolutely, yes. 100%. Do a lot of them instead die almost instantly in an active war zone? Unfortunately, yes. Unfortunately, yes. Corporals, sergeants, all of these are more rungs in the Imperial Guard hierarchy. But there are other... let me see here. Ah, here we go. Here's the command structure. Here. Here they are. All right. Here. So, now that you've become acquainted with the structure, the general structure of an Imperial Guard regiment, I think it's time, chat, that we started to look at some of the more well-known, more famous Imperial Guard regiments, because like the Space Marines in Warhammer, who have well-known chapters, who have founding chapters, the Imperial Guard have very well-known regiments, like regiments of renown throughout the galaxy. And we're going to take a look at a few of them. I'm not going to go through this whole list because there's a lot of them, but I'm going to go through a few of them. Oh, excuse me. Hello, welcome to stream. Fargus Yellow, Psycho Sam, how you doing? Welcome. Hope you like Warhammer, because that is exactly what we're talking about today. My name's NJChef, I'm a Cosmic Dragon VTuber, and I love all things Warhammer 40K. This is just one part of a series, an ongoing series of streams and, by extension, YouTube uploads that I've been going through, talking with chat, is showing them my love for all things Warhammer 40K, and just giving an introduction to all the absolute wild insanity that the 41st Millennium entails. We've already gone through... What have we gone through? We've already gone through Space Marines. We've already gone through Orcs. We are now on to... we're now on to the Imperial Guard, honestly. Which, if I'm being frank, if I wasn't already playing Space Marines, I'd probably be playing Imperial Guard at this point. It's just Sam? Awesome. No worries, dude. I got you. You painted your Chaos Marines? Nice! What flavor of chaos, I guess, are you going for? Nurgle, Khorne, Slanesh, Tzeentch, or are you going straight Chaos Undivided? Or are you going Black Legion? Just in general, very cool, very cool. Nice. I have been playing since I've been playing Warhammer 40K since 5th edition. And I have been playing the same chapter of Space Marines since 5th edition, and that is my boys in green, the Salamanders Space Marines. Because A, I just love their chapter lore, and B, I like getting up close and personal with flame and melta weapons. What can I say? No need to worry about getting shot back when everything else on the other side of the field is burned to a crisp. Toasty! I have recently picked up a new faction of army for 40k. I have started work on a Freebooters ban of orcs. So that's getting worked on. That's getting worked on, yeah. But yeah, welcome to stream. Hope you enjoy your stay. Excuse me. You chose a custom chaos factional. That's awesome. Very cool, dude. Very cool. I like that. I like that. So now, okay, here we go. Probably one of the most well-known Imperial Guard regiments and one of the more famous Imperial Guard regiments is the Armageddon Steel Legion. Now, as a bit of a background, chat, the Imperial world of Armageddon is known as one of the hottest ongoing war zones in Imperial space, because it has been besieged not once, but twice by the most fearsome orc war boss in the galaxy, Grazgul Thraka, the self-proclaimed, self-styled prophet of Gork and Mork. He has twice laid siege to this planet of Armageddon, and as a result, the Guard Regiment, the aptly named Armageddon Steel Legion, has become very, very adept at anti-orc tactics and anti-orc warfare. They specialize in combating orcs to the point that, you know, they will second parts of their regiment to other Imperial Guard regiments who are also fighting orcs to not just help train them in combating the Greenskin menace, as it were, but to also aid in that fight. Now, the reason why they're all wearing gas masks, by the way, the reason why they're all wearing gas masks, visors that cover their face, etc., etc. Hello, Snark Crew. How are you? How are you doing? I hope you're all having a wonderful day. Wonderful evening, I guess. Should be the more appropriate greeting I should be using right now. Now, the reason why the Armageddon Steel Legion lads are wearing a gas mask like this is because after so many decades and years of war on the planet's atmosphere has not become all that hospitable. I mean, you can still live there. It's still a perfectly habitable Imperial world by Imperium of Man standards. It's just that the active war zones are so, like, destroyed and blasted wastelands that they need some rebreather help. They need some rebreather help. So, not in addition to being specifically anti-orc or specializing in anti-orc tactics, the excuse me, the Armageddon Steel Legion specialize in a very specific method of warfare that is mechanized infantry. So instead of having their platoons and their military force slog across the battlefield on foot, they will instead utilize chimeras, which is a very specific tank, or just armored personnel carrier, APC. That is a very specific APC that will transport their troops to and from the battlefield, giving them protection from enemy fire while also still allowing the troops to fire back in return. They utilize a lot of tanks because they have hold on, let me actually open up some stuff here. Let me open up some more. Yeah, there's the Chimera. This is the armored personnel carrier I was talking about. So they've got turrets, they've got a hull-mounted heavy bolter. This is what the Armageddon Steel Legion will most often utilize, transporting their troops to and from the battlefield. And it's not just the Chimeras they utilize. Imperial Guard tanks. Found it. Here we go. Imperial Guard tanks are numerous. In number and in variant. Okay? Hold on to your butts, chat, because we're about to take a tangent into Tank Town, as it were. I don't know why I just alliterated all those T's together, but I digress. Okay. Sam! Thank you so much for that follow. I appreciate it. Thank you. Welcome to the lair. You're now a kobold. Congratulations. Okay. So, starting with the smallest in size, in terms of size, the smallest vehicles of under the Imperial Guard armored divisions. They are... Let's see here. Sorry. You ever a tangent within a tangent, chat? You ever have an itch? You ever have an itch on your back that you can't reach until you like contort into a very weird position? That's literally what just happened to me. Anyway. I let that distract me. I apologize. My Dark Eldar Splinter Arm is close to the painting phase. Oh, that's awesome, dude. Very cool. Very cool. I like that. So a variant of the Chimera chassis, because this is basically a blank slate that you can swap its main turret out and make any number of variations to the Chimera that you want. The first and probably the most popular Chimera tank variant is known as the Hellhound. And this picture, I love this picture to death because this embodies what a Hellhound is all about. This area back here would normally be reserved as the troop area for the Chimera troop transport. They took that space. They took that space and they added a giant fuel tank, right? They added a giant ass fuel tank. And that fuel tank connects to not just a hull-mounted flamer, but the turret-mounted, aptly named... Where is it? Inferno Cannon. So what this bad boy is known for is for driving up... perfect. Even better picture. They break out the Hellhound when they know they're facing something that has massed infantry, like Tyranids, for example. All those bodies of the Tyranid hive mind packed close together like that, it's kindling to a well-aimed shot from a Hellhound's Inferno Cannon. It will just go to town and barbecue any enemies that are in front of them. The offshoot of the Hellhound, by the way, there are two offshoots to the Hellhound. One is the Bane Wolf, which instead of the Inferno Cannon, they have a Chem Cannon, which sprays a deadly cocktail of poisons and acid for hardier targets, and the Devil Dog, which instead of a flame cannon or even a chem cannon, is a Melta cannon. So it is designed to very, very quickly roll up to enemy tanks, get a shot off with the Melta cannon and destroy it, and then they themselves get the hell out of dodge before enemy troops have the chance to zero in and return fire. These guys, I mentioned very, very briefly before, but the Sentinels are basically... Oh, beautiful! Here we go. Fantastic. The Sentinels are one-man walkers that are either an open canopy, which is known as a Scout Sentinel, or a fully enclosed canopy, which is known as a Armored Sentinel. They move independently or in squadrons, because you can take squadrons of sentinels, and they will roam around enemy lines or towards the fringes and the flanks of a battlefield, pick off enemy elements, hunt down enemy armor, stuff like that, etc., etc. And a dreadnought named Hell Casket. Oh, that's hilarious. That's really cool. I dig that. I love when people get creative with their armies. I really, really like that. The Torox is another variant of Armored Personal Carrier. This one specifically is used to transport the Tempestus Scions, the Imperial Guard Stormtroopers. This is made specifically for them should they want to be on the ground moving with the army instead of being dropped from a Valkyrie behind enemy lines. Which I think is cool. I like that. Let's see here. Oh, hold on. Here we go. Here's what I meant to do. Yep. Then we get to the main tanks of the Imperial Guard. Their main battle line tank is this. Probably the most recognizable tank in all of Warhammer 40K history. The Leman Russ battle tank. Yes, they named a tank after one of the Primarchs of the Space Marines. I love it. So the Leman Russ battle tank. The Leman Russ battle tank is the most ubiquitous battle tank any Imperial Guard army can field, be it a mechanized regiment or just on loan to an infantry regiment as part of their heavy armor division. There are, and like you can do this on the tabletop as well, by the way, which is really fun. You can field a fully mechanized Imperial Guard regiment on the tabletop in Warhammer 40K right now, and as your commander, as your regimental commander, you could have a tank commander as your HQ, as your warlord, which is really cool, and also makes your opponent really start to think like, wait, their warlord is literally in a tank. Let me tell you, chat, I've had to face down an Imperial Guard tank commander before on the tabletop, because one of my friends plays Guard. He runs a tank ace as an IG tank commander. They are tougher than they look. Oh my god, they're wild. They're absolutely wild. But this is the main line battle tank for Imperial Guard regiments everywhere. They've got the main turret, which is the stock option is a Leman Russ battle cannon. They got two sponsons on the side, and then one more hull-mounted weapon up front. They are tough. They are hardy. They pack a shit ton of firepower. And again, like I mentioned, they're probably one of the most recognizable tanks in 40K, which is really cool, which is really neat. And they have a gajillion different variants on their own, right? So, yeah, here we are. The Leman Russ Annihilator, the Conqueror, the Demolisher, the Eradicator, the Executioner, the Exterminator, the Incinerator, the Punisher, and the Vanquisher. Oh boy. Oh boy. I'm not going to dwell too long on the Leman Russ variants, but I do want to take a look at what makes them unique from the base pattern Leman Russ battle tank. The Leman Russ Annihilator, instead of the Leman Russ battle cannon, instead has two I keep tripping over my words, I apologize. But they will have instead a twin las cannon on their main turret instead of the Leman Russ battle cannon. So this variant of the Leman Russ battle tank is more specifically geared towards taking out enemy armor. The Leman Russ Conqueror is armed with a Conqueror battle cannon, which is a lighter version of the Lehman Russ battle cannon, so it doesn't pack as much of a punch as a normal Lehman Russ, but it definitely moves faster because of its reduced weight. The Lehman Russ Demolisher has what is known as the Demolisher Bombard Cannon, which has short range, but when the bombard shell actually goes off, it is a massive, massive ordnance explosion, and this is the one that's perfectly ideal for bringing down enemy fortifications. Hey, Iyashi, what's going on, buddy? How are you? The Lehman Russ Eradicator is specifically designed to target and destroy enemy tanks, specifically the Chaos Demon engines, who have much tougher armor. So what they designed was the Nova Cannon, which is basically a souped-up version of the Lehman Russ Battle Cannon, and whose shell, the Nova shell, is designed to pierce through demonic armor and then explode once it has pierced through the armor. And that is specifically designed to hunt down and destroy Chaos Demon engines. It's 2 a.m. as usual, and I heard tanks are being discussed. Yeah, we're going off on what I like to call a tank tangent, because you can't talk about the Imperial Guard without talking about tanks, because they use a lot of tanks in the Guard. What can I say? The Lehman Russ Executioner, which has to be probably my favorite variant of the Lehman Russ battle tank, because instead of the Lehman Russ battle cannon, the Executioner has a big, massive, fuck you plasma cannon on it. So it just has a massive, massive plasma cannon on its main turret. Is it dangerous? Absolutely, because plasma weaponry in the Imperium of Man in the 41st millennium is dangerous at best. Regardless, they just made a giant plasma cannon, stuck it on top of a Lehman Russ, and called it a day. It works, and oh god, if it doesn't blow up your tank in the process, you can do some massive damage with it. The Lehman Russ Exterminator is dealing specifically for dealing with like infantry, like entrenched infantry specifically, because this is a twin autocannon, which is a massive rate of fire, and will shred through light fortifications to get into the infantry entrenched within. The Lehman Russ Incinerator has not been seen since the days of the Horus Heresy, although I'm sure some relics will exist. Basically, that just means you can take this in a 40k version of the Imperial Guard, but mostly you take the Lehman Russ Incinerator when you're playing 30k with the Imperial Army, which is the precursor to the current Imperial Guard of 40k. Tangent aside, what this version of the Lehman Russ battle tank is, it has a Volkite Demi-Culverin. Chef, what the fuck is that? It's basically a giant heat ray. It is basically a giant heat ray on a tank body. So, like, if you literally want to microwave your enemies to death, this is the tank you call in. This is the tank you call in. Did I open the incinerator page? I opened the incinerator page twice. Oh god, here we go. All right. Another one of my favorite Lehman Russ tank variants is the Lehman Russ Punisher. Remember when I said the Lehman Russ, the one that had the twin autocannon on it, was used for attacking infantry? This one more so, because of this gun right here, the Punisher Gatling Cannon. On the tabletop, this thing fires off 20 shots. Now, if you do what my friend did, because he's been playing Imperial Guard for the longest time, you make your tank commander, your tank ace, and you take that HQ choice, you put him in a Lehman Russ Vanquisher, Punisher. I'm getting ahead of myself. You put him in this tank right here, right? There's a special order he can give his tank crew, which basically lets him fire the main gun again. So this Punisher Gatling cannon is suddenly spitting out 40 shots instead of just 20. Ooh, that's a lot of firepower. Ooh, that's a lot of firepower. Oh my gosh. The Vanquisher variant of the Lehman Russ battle tank is the last variant of the battle tank the Lehman Russ that we're going to go over at this point. It basically has an elongated battle cannon turret, as you can see here from this image, and basically it increases its tank hunting power and range because it can carry heavier shells and fire them at longer range down the battlefield than the normal Lehman Russ battle tank. That is specifically what the Vanquishers are made for. And very quickly, what I'm going to touch on now is two more tanks. Two more tanks that are very well known, not just with the Armageddon Steel Legion, mind you, because if we remember, this is the Imperial Guard regiment that kicked off this entire tank-based tangent. The Basilisk is their main artillery piece for any Imperial Guard regiment. Hi, Warlock. How you doing, bud? You take the Chimera chassis, you remove any and all semblance of troop carrying capacity, and instead you have this massive fuck you cannon. And what is this cannon? This is the Earthshaker cannon. These vehicles, their entire job is to sit back in the back line of a war zone and shower artillery bombardments all over the battlefield. Soften up the enemy with artillery bombardments, just so the rest of the Imperial Guard can swoop in and mop up what's left. That is how 90% of Imperial Guard engagements will start. It's just a massive artillery bombardment. There's a reason why this gun is called the Earthshaker cannon, because that is literally what the ground will feel like when one of these shells hits enemy lines. This is like the quintessential go-to artillery tank of the Imperial Guard. And it's not just on a track, mind you. It's not just on these tracked mounts that the Basilisk can be deployed. They can actually be hardwired onto static gun emplacements. It is absolutely ridiculous. But let's see. Here we are. Yes, the Wyvern, the Manticore, and I believe it's the Hydra as well. Yeah. Okay. The Minotaur and the Griffin. Which one has... Not that one. Not that one. Was it the Medusa? No, it wasn't the Medusa. Was it the Praetor? No, that's not it. Okay. Alright, I'll get to it in a moment. Another variant of that is the Wyvern, which has 4 mortar launchers instead of a massive siege cannon. The Manticore, which has... yep, here we go. The Manticore, which just has 4 Manticore missiles on it. And it literally is like... Once you fire off 4 of these missiles, that's it. This thing's got no more missiles left. But these missiles do massive damage, by the way. The Hydra flak tank, which is a dedicated anti-aircraft vehicle for the Imperial Guard. But the star of the show, the biggest and most heavily armed and heavily armored tank that any Imperial Guard regiment or dedicated armored regiment will ever field or will ever get the chance to field is this big motherfucker right here. Chat, say hello to the most recognizable tank in Warhammer 40K history. This is the Baneblade. Count it, chat. 11 guns on this Baneblade. One of my favorite voice lines from Warhammer 40K Dawn of War. Was it Dawn of War 2 or Dawn of War 3? It was from Dawn of War 2. It was from Warhammer 40K Dawn of War 2, a computer RTS game. If you were playing as the Imperial Guard, and you got your relic unit, which was the Baneblade, one of the voice lines that could be possibly said was the following: "Time to unleash 11 barrels of hell," which is exactly what the Baneblade tank is capable of. This is the biggest tank the Imperial Guard can ever field. Ah, perfect! This one's even got a hatch open. Normal-sized human, Baneblade. Normal-sized human, Baneblade. 3 twin-linked heavy bolt responsons. 2 las cannon sponsons. A hull-mounted heavy stubber. A hull-mounted demolisher cannon. And the pièce de résistance, the Baneblade cannon on the main turret. Sin Ray, thank you so much for the 15 months. Appreciate it, buddy. Thank you so much. 15 months is a kobold. You'll love to see it. You'll love to see it. This thing is the crown jewel of any Imperial Guard regiment, any armored regiment, any Imperial Guard army, period. Infantry, enemy tanks, enemy fortifications. This one massive tank can take them all down. You want to know the scary thing, chat? You want to know the terrifying thing? Much like the Layman Russ battle tank, the Baneblade also has variants of its own. I don't want to go through all of them because I've gone through a lot of tanks at the moment. But one specific Baneblade variant I do want to show off and call out is is the Shadow Sword Baneblade. I bet inflated gas prices can take it down. You're absolutely right, Brainbuster. Also, what up, man? How are you? Well done. Well done. I appreciate that. That's very good. That's very good. Again, I don't want to go through all of the Baneblade variants because I literally just did that for all of the Layman Russ variants. But the one Baneblade variant I do want to point out is probably my favorite Baneblade variant out of them all. It's the Shadow Sword. It's not even a turret. This thing is just this cannon has to be mounted directly to the main hull and main chassis of the Baneblade itself. Why? Because this is a volcano cannon. This is a cannon that is usually mounted on Titans. It is that powerful, and they decided to mount it on a Baneblade chassis. What is a volcano cannon, you must be asking? A volcano cannon is the final evolution of what a melt-a-gun is. So, cast your mind back to when I talked about Space Marines, and when I described what a melt-a-gun does, right? It basically disassembles things at a molecular level, and it melts them down into slag. That is what a volcano cannon does at a macro scale. At a macro scale. Plasma gun, but useful. Exactly. This is a gun that's normally mounted on Titans. And the Adeptus Mechanicus just went, okay, but what if we take that and put it on a tank? And the Imperial Guard said, oh my god, yes, please. give me the tank, give me that gun. And that's how the Shadow Sword Baneblade was born. This thing is ridiculous, okay? Let me tell you a story, chat. Let me tell you a story. I have a friend who's been playing Imperial Guard since 3rd edition. So, like, longer than I've been playing Warhammer, okay? Because I've only been playing since 5th. He's got a Shadow Sword Baneblade, and I literally saw this thing in one round of shooting entirely annihilate. What was it? What did he fire at? He one-shot one of the knights, like Imperial Knights. It was a Chaos Knight, but I digress. On the other side of the board, this thing does a massive amount of damage. It's ridiculous. It is absolutely bonkers. That's how powerful a Shadow Sword Baneblade is. That's how powerful a Shadow Sword Baneblade is. Oh my god. Alright, you know what? No, one more. Was it the Stormlord? Okay. Okay. One more variant. One more Baneblade variant. This is the Stormlord. You can probably already see what the Stormlord is all about. Because in place of the main hull, on the directly right here, this is what is known as a Vulcan-class Mega Bolter. This is yet another Titan-class weapon that they decided to strap onto a tank chassis. So one Vulcan Mega Bolter on the tabletop spits out somewhere in the order of like 30 shots. This has a twin Vulcan Mega Bolter. That's 60 shots. Now, if you upgrade this tank to have a tank ace, remember what I said earlier, chat? You can order your tank crew to fire again. That is 120 shots. Granted, yes, that means you have to roll 120 d6. But that is so satisfying. If there's any one singular tank in the Imperial Guard's armory that defines the phrase anti-infantry, it is the Stormlord variant of the Baneblade. It is the Stormlord variant of the Baneblade. Right here. This hulking monstrosity. Right here. Imperial Guard tanks, man, what can I say? They are absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely wild. Alright. I mentioned these guys. I mentioned these guys before. I seem to catch your stream at a transitioning period in my life. I'm thinking about getting back to the 40K with the Imperial Guard. Oh man, Brainbuster. Honestly, okay, real talk. I've mentioned this a few times myself. One of the first armies I was actually considering, all the way back in the beginning of 5th edition, when I first got interested in tabletop Warhammer 40K, was actually the Imperial Guard. I've said it many times in my life, whenever people talk to me about Warhammer 40K, if I wasn't so invested in Space Marines, I would definitely be playing Imperial Guard by now. Because I love their whole aesthetic of just like normal, everyday humans and lots of tanks. It's just really cool to me. It's just really, really neat to me. There's so many different variants of Imperial Guard, and their new codex literally just dropped, I think, last month? They got new models for a few things. They actually have a new tank, believe it or not. They gave the Imperial Guard a brand new tank. Can you believe it? New models dropped yesterday. Yeah. You're right. Yesterday. Shocker. They gave the Imperial Guard a new tank, right? Shocked Pikachu face.jpg, like. But yeah, no, legitimately, if I wasn't so deep, deeply invested into Space Marines, I would definitely be playing Imperial Guard by now. And one of the new models, actually, because I've already talked about these guys ad nauseum, but the Attilan Rough Riders, the fact that the Attilan Rough Riders of all things got new models, new weapons, and a new rules update in the year of our Lord 2023. Holy Jesus. This was a shock to everyone. Like, of the bingo card list of things the Imperial Guard could have gotten in a new codex, literally nobody would have guessed an Attilan Rough Rider update. Not just a rules update, but a model update as well. Everyone was just like, oh my god, finally, they're viable again. And they are actually viable, which blows my fucking mind. The Rough Riders are viable again. It's just absolutely wild, and I love that. I mentioned it earlier, like, I love when 40K gets silly. And, like, look at this. I mean, come on. A cavalry unit in the 41st millennium with lances that have grenades at the end. That's so dumb and so silly, which is exactly why they're awesome. It's exactly why they're amazing. I love it. I fucking love it. It's still a long shot, but I'm hoping to see more varied units like this. I always thought the Mordian Iron Guard were the quintessential Imperial Guard regiment. Yeah! They scream professional cannon fodder. Exactly. I'm gonna skip ahead to the Mordian Iron Guard, actually. These guys, like, if you had an image in your brain of an Imperial Guard regiment that screamed the word pretentious, you would have the Mordian Iron Guard. Because that is their normal field kit. That's their everyday uniform. That's not their parade uniform. No. This is what they march to war in. This is legitimately the uniform they march to war in. Look at this. This is a great quote right here. Chat, are you ready for this? They spend every off-duty minute polishing their shiny boots and marching up and down the parade ground in perfect formation. But don't let that fool you. These men are steel-eyed, cold-blooded killers, and I'd as soon as have a platoon of them in my force as I would a company of any other troops. They look pretentious as all hell, but my god are they, like, ridiculously good, because the entire story behind the Mordian Iron Guard, right? The entire story behind the Mordian Iron Guard, jokes aside, pretentious jokes aside, they are probably one of the most disciplined regiments of the Imperial Guard probably ever, honestly. Because they are taught, they're basically drilled from birth, death in service to the Imperium of Man is more honorable than giving up or running away. That is how hardcore, drilled they are. That is just how they are trained from day one. Hell, from day zero. That is the entire crux of what makes the Mordian Iron Guard actually ridiculously good. But yeah, it's just, I make the joke that they look pretentious as hell because, I mean, come on. You'd expect that to be a parade uniform, not the fucking uniform they go to war in. Like, what? What? I will say this. If I were to field an Imperial Guard regiment, it would be these guys. It would be these guys right here. The Elysian drop troops. Because I love their kit because it literally makes them look like the Colonial Marines from Aliens. Which is really fucking cool. I really dig this style of flak armor. I just really like how that looks. Honestly, I really like how that looks. And their doctrine of war is literally in their name. They are the drop troops. These guys are the ones that are literally airlifted and dropped via grav chute onto the battlefield, often behind enemy lines. And they are the ones, it is very dangerous missions that the Elysian drop troops will start facing down. It's the goggles, it really is the goggles, yeah. Honestly, it really is. I really, really like these guys. I really like their lore. I like how it's literally an entire Imperial Guard unit that deploys via Valkyrie, via dropship. And Forge World, actually, there we go, yeah. Forge World had custom rules for the Elysian drop troops way back in the day, because you could use these specialized Valkyrie transports to drop vehicles like this onto the battlefield alongside your Elysian drop troops. It was really fucking cool. You can basically deep strike these little ATV vehicles alongside your troops on the battlefield, which, you know, now that I've said that out loud, does seem a little bit OP, I'm not gonna lie, but I just really like that sort of style, like fast strike, fly in there, drop your troops and your equipment, and then just go. Start fulfilling your objectives and take out enemy positions in that manner. Honestly, if I was playing Imperial Guard, it would definitely be the Elysian drop troops. Close second would be the Death Corps of Krieg, because honestly, I just really like the gas mask look. I mentioned them towards the start of stream, but like the Death Corps of Krieg, rightly so, are probably one of the most popular Imperial Guard regiments among 40K fans because of their lore. Literally because of their lore. Hold on. I'll get to their lore in a second. I just need to take a very quick break because I've been talking for an hour and 40 some odd minutes and I've been out of water for the longest time. Give me a second. I'll be right back. Whew, all right. Hello, chat. I am back. Oh. Yeah, guess who decided to sit down and start rambling about the Imperial Guard and not realize he didn't have anything to drink? This dumbass. Good job, me. Good job. Hey, Kay, what's going on, bud? How you doing? Himbo's 40K hot take of the day. Yark ain't dead. He's just waiting to respawn. Agreed. 100% agreed. Oh, my lord. Absolutely agreed. Holy crap. What was I talking about before I went to get something to drink? Ah, the Death Corps of Krieg. Right. Yeah, no, legit. If it wasn't, it's either the Elysian drop troops or the Death Corps of Krieg is who I'd be playing if I had invested as much time into Imperial Guard as I did into my salamanders. 100%. Absolutely 100%, yes. I figured I'd drop that It's like that little shit ball of wisdom before my meds kick in and become a potato again. Ah, I get you, buddy. Don't worry. Rest up, man. Rest up. But yeah, the TLDR of the Death Korps of Krieg is that their world got absolutely nuked, but they still keep on fighting, which is why like they are always depicted as having gas masks on, because they kind of need it. They literally need them. So like trench warfare and siege warfare and like wars of attrition are all of what the Death Korps of Krieg specialize in, which is why the thank you, Kay. I appreciate that. You mentioned the meme before I did. Which is where the meme of like the Krieg with the Krieg guardsman with a shovel comes in. The goddamn shovels. The shovels. Side note, in Darktide, when I realized that you could actually have a combat shovel as a melee weapon, I got very excited. I was like, yes, finally, good. I can... Oh my god. Krieg is kind of my area of wisdom. Yeah, no worries, I appreciate it. Thank you for clarifying, Kay. Yes, the masks are to hide the fact that their troopers are all kids who were vat-grown clones. Yes. I appreciate that, thank you, don't worry. And it's 100% inspired by World War I trench shoulders. 100%, yes. I would 100% be playing Death Korps of Krieg, or for that matter, the Elysian Drop Troops, because I just love their fucking aesthetic. It's like, look at this. Even their commissars look absolutely terrifying. Even the horses. I failed to mention this earlier, but look at this. Even the horses wear gas masks. Which, listen, if that is not the most metal, the most grimdark thing in the fucking world, I don't know what is. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I love it. Yes, Kay, you're absolutely correct. The lance is a one-time use weapon, and it is basically a mini nuke on a stick. You're absolutely correct. Oh my god. Right. Oh, I forgot about this weapon. The fucking mole launcher. It's literally a gun that fires an explosive that tunnels underground towards the enemy. It's really absolutely bonkers. And imagine and the community at large, imagine everyone's surprise when, with the new edition of Kill Team, when that new edition of Kill Team launched. Oh my god. Plastic Death Korps of Krieg models? Games Workshop. Oh my fucking god. The community lost their fucking shit. Cause look at how good these look. Look at how good these look. Legitimately, I don't play Imperial Guard at all. And I was just like, I need a box of these minis. Cause they look so fucking good. I bought 4 sets, no shame. Nice, dude. Nice. Very nice. Oh. I love all the detail on these too, like the med pack for the medic, the fucking plunger for the demolitionist. God. These are so characterful and like so very just, oh my goodness. Oh yeah, the Orc Commandos that came in that set as well. Those Commandos look really good. Honestly, those Commandos look real good. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, Death Korps of Krieg, very, very popular. Another really popular Imperial Guard regiment with the community at large. Catachin Jungle Fighters. the Catachin Jungle Fighters are like... Okay. You know the movie Predator, right? Arnold Schwarzenegger and everybody else? Take them and make an entire Imperial Guard regiment out of that team. You will have the Catachin Jungle Fighters. You will have the Catachin Jungle Fighters. So, backstory. And I briefly alluded to this before. Catachin, the world of Catachin, where this regiment is drawn from, is a death world. Meaning, literally everything on the planet is lethal to any humans who want to settle there. Right? And it is for that reason why the regiment known as the Catachin Jungle Fighters are as powerful, are as strong, are as battle-hardened as they are. Because literally every day for them is a fight for survival, right? Like, look, that plant right there, it literally has teeth on it. Even the plants on Catachin will kill you if you give them the chance. For example, I believe, yeah, that is exactly what that was right there. The brain leaf, a vegetative carnivore, is a small tree, not particularly conspicuous on Catachin, but is able to attach its tendrils to the spine and brain of a person, taking control over their body. This creature may be an offshoot of the Tyrannid Cortex Leech, a creature that boasts similar abilities. A spiker, which is another deadly plant, fires its spikes into the victim's body, which then releases a mutative chemical which literally turns the person into another spiker. A Venus man-trap, a giant carnivorous plant common to Death World jungles. It resembles the Terran Venus flytrap for which it is named, but it is far larger, and unlike the flytrap, it is able to move its leaves to attack and consume its prey. When I say even the plants on Catachin will kill you, I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. Probably the most ubiquitous thing on the world of Catachin are the Catachin devils themselves. Voracious predators somewhat looking like a many-limbed scorpion. They can be as long as a land train but are very bulky and slow-moving, that meaning escape is still technically possible. That's what a Catachin devil looks like, by the way. Like some sort of nightmare hybrid between a centipede and a scorpion. If you needed, if you needed a sleep paralysis demon, here you go. Chat. Just to drive home how big a Catachin devil is, that's the turret of a Lehman Russ battle tank. That is a Catachin devil. Oh boy. There's a reason why the Catachin jungle fighters are as hardy and as fearsome as they are. Like legitimately. And some of the Catachin jungle fighters, there are some really, where are you? Where are you? Yeah, there you are. Friends, it's time I introduced you to one of the most OP people in any Imperial Guard regiment. The most famous Imperial Guardsman to ever lace up a pair of combat boots and go to war. Friends, say hello to Slime Arbo.
aka the one-man army. Sly Marbo is a Catachan guardsman, feared by the enemies of the Imperium for his sniping skills that would rival a Vindicare assassin and survival skills greater than most Space Marines. He has been known to take on entire enemy forces, striking fear into any who threaten Catachan or the Imperium at large. Sly Marbo is probably, like, the most ridiculous person to ever grace 40K in general. And, like, he is, before you ask, yes, he is an obvious riff on, like, every action movie star ever. He is a riff on Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, etc., etc. Like, that is Sly Marbo's entire existence. Yes, I am very much aware. But, like, the list of deeds that Sly Marbo has done border on the stuff of legend. Honestly, it borders on the stuff of legend. Yeah, Sly Stallone, Marbo equals Rambo, extremely on the nose. Yeah, yep, that's it. Absolutely. Like, Marbo is known for, the reason why he's got the one-man army moniker is because he's literally done deeds that have destroyed entire army forces by himself. Like, for example, this picture right here, which I zoomed in on very briefly. This is from a story where Marbo, by himself, managed to intercept a Tau tank column that was coming to destroy the Imperial Guard regiment he was currently attached to. So what he did was he laid a trap for that tank column in a cavern, set off explosives to not only trap the tank column inside that ravine, but to collapse the ravine on that Tau tank column, destroying all of the tanks in the process. And then Marbo by himself went in and started picking off all of the survivors. Any Tau that survived the initial collapse and the initial explosion, he started picking them off one by one and single-handedly defeated an entire Tau regiment, but also saved the Imperial Guard regiment that he was currently attached to. That's just one story among many. And this is why the Catachan Jungle Fighters are absolutely buck wild. Like, ridiculously. Absolutely wild. Let's see, what other notable Imperial Guard regiments shall we talk about? The Talarn Desert Raiders. I really like their look. Honestly. The Talarn Desert Raiders are essentially, you know, what it says on the in their name. Their homeworld is just 90% desert. Didn't used to be that way, though. It's literally because they destroyed their environment and made it like a planet-wide desert. So they specialize in very rapid assaults, like, you know, they move probably as swiftly as the desert winds, if I can quote their old codex entry. Okay. Remember when I said that Imperial Guard regiments can be whittled down and almost killed off after many, many wars? And I mentioned very briefly that there was the story of one Imperial Guard world that was annihilated and destroyed down to but a single squad. That is what the Tanith First and Only are. or to use their more commonly used nomenclature, Gaunt's Ghosts. So what happened on Tanith, or formally happened on Tanith. My last message didn't pop up in chat. Oh no. That's unfortunate. Here we go. Da. So literally, the world of Tanith was razed and destroyed by chaos, with only a handful of people surviving. And of those people was a man by the name of Colonel Commissar Ibram Gaunt. And what Gaunt would go on to do is and there's an entire novel series, by the way. There's an entire series of novels that explains this probably better than I could. But what Gaunt would do, Gaunt's Ghosts, they are specialty troopers. They are literally the only ones left of Tanith. But look at how many campaigns, how many successful campaigns they have fought in. They are like specialists at infiltration, guerrilla warfare, etc., because like there's so few of them left. They have to sort of specialize in stuff like that. And once again, goddamn Games Workshop giving them the new plastic model treatment recently. Like, good lord. By the way, I fucking love this miniature for Gaunt. That's so fucking good. It's so good. I love it. I love it to death. They are so good. The Valhallan Ice Warriors. I really like these guys as well. If you want like a Siberian themed Imperial Guard army, go for the Valhallan Ice Warriors, because that's literally what they look like. Okay. Very specific story about this guy right here. Chenkov. Commander Chenkov. Back in the day when Games Workshop had specific rules for specific Imperial Guard regiments, Chenkov is one of those Imperial Guard leaders who thinks very, very little of the men and women he commands. He had a special rule that if you lost a unit of infantry, if you lost an infantry unit of Imperial Guard, you could, on the very next turn, bring in another unit. Same strength as the one that was just lost. And that represents Chenkov's view of his troops. He views each and every person under his command as entirely expendable. Chenkov does not think highly of his troops at all. They are a tool for him to wield a means to an end. And it's just like, send in the next wave. Oh, they didn't get that done? Send in the next wave again. Just a little note. That is just a bit of flavor I wish Games Workshop would bring back to the Imperial Guard, because there's so many fucking cool Imperial Guard regiments out there. The Vostroyan Firstborn. Their story actually. Their story actually is kind of dark, you know. I mean, a dark backstory in Warhammer 40K. Duh. But like, just check this out for a second, okay? During the Age of Strife, during the Horus Heresy, excuse me. During the Horus Heresy, when the Imperial army was recruiting to help fight in the heresy against Horus and anyone who joined Horus. What's it called? Vostroya, the planet of Vostroya, was asked to tithe a certain amount of its population to be conscripted into the Imperial army to fight to defend the Imperium, correct? Vostroya refused, citing that it needed its population to remain on the planet of Vostroya to run the foundries and the manufactura on the planet. But after seeing how long and how devastating the Horus Heresy was, the people of Vostroya eventually felt guilt at initially saying no to sending members of their populace to fight in the Imperial army. And so as a result, the ruling council of Vostroya decreed that every firstborn son of every Vostroyan family on the planet would be sent off as tithe to the Imperial regiments of the Vostroyan army to fight in the Imperial Guard, which is why they are named the Vostroyan Firstborn. Oh boy! Congratulations, you're the firstborn child of a family on the planet of Vostroya. A lifetime of Imperial Guard service for you. Like, goddamn. Bit of a shocker on your birthday, yeah, right? Sheesh. I will say, I fucking love how unique they look, though. Because, like, look at their uniforms. Look, their weaponry, even. Their weaponry is so different. Because they have their home planet, their recruiting planet, is also a manufactorum planet, they can actually afford to make all the weapons themselves. And as a result, they put their own little flair, their own little flourish into their weaponry, which is why Vostroyan weaponry looks so different from the standard pattern Imperial Guard weaponry, which I really like, honestly. I like that distinction. It's really, really cool. I just love how over-the-top Vostroyan commanders look. Like, I mean, come on, that's just so gaudy, but I love it to death. That's gaudy as hell, and I love it. It's so good. Alright, I have saved probably the most ubiquitous and the most numerous Imperial Guard regiment for last. The Cadian Shock Troops. The literal poster boys for the Imperial Guard for as far back as I can remember. Yeah, Vostroyan's kind of a blend of the Imperial Russia and the Cossacks. You're right. Yeah. 100%. I get that. I can see that. Yeah. Cadian shock troops, in lore, are the most well-trained, most numerous, and probably like the pattern of Imperial Guard regiment that every other regiment is based off of, because they come from the world of Cadia, which is one of the hottest war zones in Warhammer 40K. Or should I say, was one of the hottest war zones in Warhammer 40K. So, at the very beginning of 9th edition Warhammer 40K, Games Workshop finally, after decades of not moving the plot forward at all, finally pulled the trigger on a major plot movement. And they actually had Abaddon the Despoiler and the Black Legion succeed in taking over Cadia, breaking Cadia, and expanding the Eye of Terror that it literally tore the galaxy in half. So fair play to Games Workshop. Okay, they moved the plot forward. That's great. Bad news for Cadia. That means Cadia is very much dead. You don't come back from something like that. Cadia is very much gone. But full credit, and this is like the most badass quote to me. All right, this is the most badass quote to me. As Imperial forces are being evacuated from Cadia, as the planet is being swarmed by demons and Chaos Space Marines, as the planet is literally dying under their feet, the Cadian shock troops of the Imperial Guard kept on fighting. They kept on fighting and fighting and fighting. They fought to get the rest of the Imperial forces off Cadia. They fought to keep Cadia, or to keep what remained of Cadia out of Chaos hands for as long as they could. And the most badass line I think I've ever read in any Warhammer 40K lore, any Warhammer 40K story, is this: the planet broke before the Imperial Guard did. That is so fucking, like, that is ice cold to me. Like, my God. The planet is literally breaking under their feet. And instead of running, crying, or hiding, the Cadian Imperial Guard stood their ground and fought literally until the very last moments of Cadia's existence. Like, goddamn. Literally, the planet broke before the shock troops did. Holy crap. That's so goddamn good. That's so fucking metal. I love it. But it's for that reason. It's for that reason why the Cadian shock troops are the poster boy for Imperial Guard regiments literally across the galaxy. Because, like, if you look at... Give me a moment. Yeah. Here we go. Let me pull these pictures up. If you look at, like, generic pictures of guardsmen, 9 times out of 10, what's actually being shown are Cadians, or is the Cadian uniform, is the Cadian military uniform. So, like, for your basic infantry squad like this can be used to depict any Imperial Guard regiment, because you can paint these fatigues and the flak jacket and the helmets any way you want. But for the Cadian shock troops specifically, here's their upgraded gear. It's literally just generic enough. You're absolutely right, Brainbuster. You're absolutely correct. It's just generic enough. But for the Cadian shock troops, specifically for the Cadian veterans, they've got, like, thicker flak armor. They've got, like, knee pads on their fatigues as well. They've got a little bit more varied equipment. That's how you can tell Cadian veterans from the generic rank and file Imperial Guard trooper. Even more so for a command squad, like a full-on Cadian styled command squad, like right here. You've got the veterans, you've got the banner bearer, you've got the officer, and you've got the Vox operator, which, by the way, I kind of really dig this Vox backpack, because just, like, look at how over-the-top ridiculous that antenna is. And yet it fits so well in 40K. It's so good. It's so good. But yeah, I love Cadia's whole aesthetic like that. And there are, hold on a moment. Yeah, here we go. There's two. There are two people I need to shout out immediately. Okay? The first is this man right here. Your Sarker E. Creed, the Lord Castellan of the Cadian Shock Troops Imperial Guard. Creed is literally a master tactician. Creed is there's actually a meme. There's actually a meme that has existed in the 40K fandom for as long as Creed has been around, until recently, but we'll get to that. But Creed had a rule back in the day that if Creed was your army general, your warlord, he could take any unit in your army, infantry or vehicle, and have them outflank on your enemy's board edge on any turn you wanted. I cannot emphasize how broken this rule was, because people very quickly figured out, oh, there's no limit. It literally just says any unit or vehicle in your army. Turn 2, I'm going to outflank this Baneblade on your board edge. And that was a legal move people could do back in the day. Here's a fucking Baneblade that's infiltrating on your board edge. Creed, oh my, I need to find that meme. There are dozens of memes about this. Hold on. Absolutely ridiculous. There's a, oh yes, here we go. I found it. Chat, I found it. Okay, are you ready? This image, this one image right here, depicts how OP Creed was on the tabletop back in the day. A fucking Baneblade hiding behind a street lamp, and this poor Eldar warrior here is like, what is that noise? Tactical genius right there. Tactical genius. This is how, I'm not even kidding you. This is how broken Creed was back in the day. The tank rolled a nat 20 on stealth. You damn right he did. It's just like, whoop, suddenly Baneblade. Oh my god, it's so good. Unfortunately, in 9th edition, Games Workshop did something absolutely what the fuck. Alright? Absolutely what the fuck. During the fall of Cadia, check this out, okay? Abaddon was ultimately able to destroy Cadia by redirecting the remnants of the Blackstone Fortress, the Will of Eternity, onto the planet's surface, destabilizing the pylons and pulling the entire planet into the warp. Creed and his Cadian 8th bought time for the other Imperial forces on Cadia to evacuate, holding back endless hordes of demons. As the planet died around him, Creed accepted his fate, but was confronted by a giant in scaled armor. The giant laughed, saying that Creed's time need not end here. The mysterious giant proved to be the Necron overlord Trazine the Infinite, who put Creed in a gallery on Solomons labeled The Last Stand over Sarker Creed. Creed got kidnapped by Trazine and is basically in a zoo in Trazine's world of Solomons. For all intents and purposes, the Imperium thinks Creed is dead. But in actuality, he's basically hanging out in Trazian's zoo because Trazian is just like, huh, you're important. You're a part of an important piece of history. I like collecting history. Because Trazian is a fucking troll and a half. And whenever I get around to covering Necrons on this series, oh boy, Trazian, you son of a bitch. I will get to you. So, a handful of Cadians actually did manage to make it off planet before the planet got deleted from existence, right? Of like some 800 million inhabitants on Cadia, only about 3.5 million made it off planet. Everyone else, goodbye. Who is the current Lord Castellan of the Cadian shock troops? None other than Ursarker E. Creed's daughter, Ursula J. Creed. She is literally picking up where her father left off. She's the current Lord Castellan of the Cadian shock troops. And honestly, I love her model. It's great. It's really, really good. It's really, really good. I like her a lot. But yeah, those are some of the more popular or more like every single Imperial Guard regiment I just went through here are, is mentioned in the Imperial Guard Codex. Every story I just mentioned is also in the Imperial Guard Codex for the Guard themselves. But there's a few more. There are a few more Imperial Guard regiments that have been mentioned in the lore and in the stories, but aren't mentioned in the main codex themselves, but people still love them to death. Like, for example, the 13th Penal Legion, the Harkoni Warhawks, and probably one of the most popular non-codex Imperial Guard regiments I've ever seen, because I see fan art of them everywhere. The Salavar Chem Dogs. We'll start with them. Oh god, hello lag. Salavar Chem Dogs are a penal legion of the Imperial Guard, composed of some of the most hardened criminals and desperados in the Imperium. Recruits are drawn from the prisons of the planet Salavar and by the promise to allow them to keep anything they take from the battlefield, as well as a chance to get away from Salavar's highly toxic environment. I really like how I've been saying their name wrong this entire time, Savlar Chem Dogs really look, because they if you look at how they're dressed, because they all got the rebreathers, because their planet's world is so, toxic to them. I really like how they look, and they just sort of, grabbed a following within the fandom at large, just because of how unique they are, honestly. Hey, Makazi, what's going on? The Harkoni Warhawks and the Savlar Chem Dogs are in a codex. They are mentioned and do have a small paragraph in 3rd edition. Ah, I see. Makazi, I'm glad you're here because, you are the one person I know who's been playing Guard for the longest time. And I do appreciate that, bud. How you doing, man? Hope you're doing well. Speaking of the Harkoni Warhawks, here they are. The Harkoni Warhawks are a highly mobile force thanks to their use of grav chutes to deploy from orbit whenever they are needed. They are kind of like the, oh god, I literally just mentioned them before. They're kind of like the Elysian drop troops, honestly. Or the Harkoni Warhawks. Can't believe I came so late to this lore dump. Oh, no worries, dude, no worries. I've just been going through all of the history of the Guard, some of the more well-known regiments. I went on an entire tangent on Imperial Guard tanks. because, God, I've said this many times, and I've said this to you a lot, Makazi. I've said this to you a lot as well. If I wasn't so goddamn invested in Space Marines, and now to a certain other extent orcs as well, I'd be playing Guard by now. Like, legitimately. The 13th Penal Legion. Colonel Schaefer's last chancers. You remember what I said when, earlier, way earlier in the stream, that penal legions would march to war for the promise of freedom, or they would get their head blown off by the detonation collars around their neck? Colonel Schaefer's last chancers, the 13th Penal Legion, are a particularly popular penal legion within the Imperial Guard regiments. Because, like, they're given the name the last chancers because they are given, literally, what are some of them, the last chance for freedom. But it also, what's it called? They are also given assignments where it could be their last chance ever to come back from an assignment, because they're given some dangerous assignments. And somehow, some way, Colonel Schaefer gets them in and out of that battle zone, scarred and bloodied, but still very, very, very much alive. But still very, very much alive. It's to the point where, like, yes, they're a penal legion. Yes, these are technically criminals of the Imperium, but they're full-fledged Imperial Guardsmen at this point, which is just absolutely bonkers. The fact that they survived as many engagements as they have as a dedicated penal legion is ridiculous. Some sort of suicide squad. Exactly. Yes. Oh god, I just got a conversion idea. Aw, snap. Here we go. What's another army? Oh no. No, Makazi, don't do this to me. Listen, I already have plans to get some models for Leagues of Votan. Don't throw Imperial Guard on top of that as well. Don't throw Guard on top of that as well. Jesus. Holy moly. I love the Imperial Guard. They are absolutely... There are Oh, you know what? Hold on. Time out. Where? Hang on a moment, chat. Hang on a moment. Regiment's command structure. Astra Militarum hierarchy. Yes. Okay. Here we go. There's one very, very, very important aspect of the Imperial Guard that I have to talk about, and it cannot be overlooked. The Commissars. I cannot talk about the Imperial Guard without mentioning these people at least once. So, the Commissars are formally part of the Militarum Tempestus, which is a higher branch of the Imperial Guard. They are trained within the Departmentum Militarium's Commissariat, and they are essentially commanders on steroids. So, and their entire existence, their entire role within an Imperial Guard regiment is to maintain discipline within the ranks and maintain devotion to the Emperor of Mankind and the Imperium. How do they do that? Quite simply, actually. They execute anyone on the spot that they deem to be disloyal or who have shown cowardice. And it is up to their discretion, and it is up to their own discretion as to what that constitutes. So if if you go to flee in the middle of battle, no matter how hopeless the situation is, yes, the Commissar will put a bullet in your brain for doing so. It is absolutely wild. It is absolutely wild. They look sharp in black and red. They sure as hell do. Honestly, I really like how the Commissars look. They're really good. They're really, really good. On the tabletop, what that translates to, I'm not sure how the rule works with current 40K, but all the way back in 5th edition 40K, to my understanding at least, if your unit failed a morale check and it had a Commissar attached to it, he could execute another member of that squad in favor, which means you would be down a model, which means that model would be dead and gone. But in exchange, your morale check would be passed, so you wouldn't flee. Which is absolutely wild. Most drip in the galaxy. Yeah, I can see that, yeah. So, like, okay, let me see here. I'm not 100% ready to commit to getting back into this, but my thinking right now is to buy the new Commissar when it drops. I like the model, paint it, and see if I got enough patience to follow through. I get that entirely, Brainbuster. Like, okay, tangent, once again. I've got a list of stream ideas I wanna get done, and I wanna follow through on going forward. And one of the streams I want to bring back to this channel specifically is hobby streams, painting streams for Warhammer, stuff like that. Because I want to bring that back, because that is something I really love doing. That is something y'all have enjoyed in the past, and most importantly, it helps my ass get through my painting backlog. Yeah, I stopped doing that for a while because I'll be honest. I was pretty much done at the time, mind you. I was pretty much done with my salamanders where I wanted them to be. And B, I don't know, it was a lot of setup to get that kind of stream ready. But I want to bring them back again because A, I found more stuff I could work on, and B, I have orcs now. I can work on those. So, like, yeah, definitely. I want to bring that back. I want to bring that back now because I found a couple of Space Marine things I can work on. I have a bunch of orcs I can work on now. So, like, trust me, chat. Trust me. Painting streams are coming back. 100%. They are coming back. 100%. They are coming back. And I'm very excited to bring them back too. Yeah. So, yeah. They are basically Commissars in general. They're kind of like Makazi. You were the one who mentioned it in chat a little while ago. Yes. They're kind of like drill sergeants, but with the power and literally the right to execute on the spot anyone that they deem showing cowardice or like traitorous sort of tendencies on the field of battle in the heat of battle. And again, keep in mind, that's entirely up to their own discretion. There's no rulebook saying what constitutes treachery, what constitutes cowardice. No, that's up to them. That's up to them entirely. Commissars also can rise to a position of power where they can command an entire regiment or even an entire platoon of Imperial Guard by themselves. For example, Ibram Gaunt. reach the rank of Colonel Commissar because he's the only one left alive to lead the Tanith First and Only Regiment, right? Because of what happened to Tanith, because that planet got fucking glassed by a chaos invasion. They're actually a more competent and less corrupted version of IRL Soviet commissars, which is fucking wild to think about. I know, right? That's a little scary when you think about it that way. Yeah. There's some other very famous commissars in here as well. Caiaphas Cain. Oh my god. How could I forget about Commissar Caiaphas Cain? Look at this motherfucker. Look at this motherfucker. The man, the myth, the legend, Caiaphas Cain. Over 200 years old when he was recalled into service during the 13th Black Crusade. This man has been around for the longest fucking time. The joke, if I had to summarize Caiaphas Cain's character the way he's been written, not just on the tabletop, but in his novels as well, Caiaphas Cain is the Warhammer 40K equivalent of MacGyver. This man will not only pull victory from the jaws of defeat, he will pull it out of his own ass if he has to. He is the Warhammer 40K equivalent of fucking MacGyver. Oh my god. Ibram Gaunt, yeah, Colonel Commissar Ibram Gaunt, the 10th First and Only. We've talked about him before. I don't want to spoil too much about him. If you really want a good grasp of Gaunt's Ghosts, read the Gaunt's Ghosts novel series. They're very good. They are very, very good. And again, I just want to show off his new model because it looks so good. Like, honestly, when Games Workshop decides to put their all into a new sculpt for a plastic miniature, it comes out really well. Like, goddamn. It comes out really well. Ooh, right. I have to talk about the Commissar character and the Commissar model that almost made me play Imperial Guard instead of Space Marines. Friends, say hello to the most badass Commissar in the fucking world. Commissar Sebastian Yarick. AKA Old Man Yarick, aka the only human in the entire galaxy that Warlord Grazgul Thraka respects. Let me say that again. The most feared orc warlord in the galaxy respects Commissar Yarick. Like, genuinely respects the man. Let me tell you a story about Commissar Yarick here. During the Second War of Armageddon, he was the one who had to organize the defense of the Armageddon Steel Legion, of his particular regiment of the Armageddon Steel Legion, which is the 4th Armageddon Regiment. However, the person who was actually in charge, Hermann von Straub, was entirely terrible at his job. Hermann von Straub insisted that they needed no help in pushing back the Orc menace. Needless to say, he got absolutely destroyed. And when Yarick said otherwise, Yarick was banished to Hades Hive as punishment for circumventing Straub's authority. TLDR, Straub was mistaken. The planet was almost overrun by orcs until they reached Hades Hive, where Yarick was stationed. He took over the command of the defense of Hades Hive and almost single-handedly helped Hades Hive stop the orc horde and entirely stymie them until reinforcements eventually arrived. However, during the defense of Hades' Hive, Yarick was severely wounded. He had his arm ripped off by an orc knob. And instead of laying up in the Medicae station and recovering and waiting for a bionic replacement, what did Yarick do? He said, "Give me the power claw of the orc that ripped my arm off and attach it to me. I will go back into the fight myself." An arm for an arm, in Yarick's own words. Man's wielding an orc power claw by himself. A human is wielding an orc power claw. He took that thing, is like, fine, it's mine now, and just walked back into the battlefield like nothing ever fucking happened. Eventually, stories of Yarick's deeds would eventually start to permeate through the orc forces on Armageddon. And they began to fear Yarick. Orcs fearing a human? Utterly impossible, but it's true. It got to a point where orc superstition was so great, and keep in mind, orcs, when they believe something in enough numbers, it becomes true for them, right? Orcs got so afraid of Yarick that they thought a mere gaze from Yarick was enough to kill them. And Yarick, having become an expert on orc battle tactics at this point, said, "Okay, let me play into orc superstition." They augmented his bionic eye to fire a laser, basically with the power of a las gun. And again, in Yarick's own words, if the greenskins say a gaze from myself will be enough to kill, then let it be so. Which is how the greenskins, the orcs on Armageddon, got the nickname Bale Eye Yarick. Because a mere gaze from Yarick would be enough to kill an orc stone dead on the spot. When the Space Marines, the Blood Angels, the Salamanders, and all the other Space Marine chapters arrived to help Yarick push back the orc horde on Armageddon, Commander Dante himself recognized Yarick as being the linchpin of Armageddon's defense. And since Dante was the overall commander of the operation to liberate Armageddon, bring it back into the Imperial fold, Dante named Yarick as the overall commander of the Armageddon Steel Legion on Armageddon. And it was from that point onward that he was hailed as the savior of Armageddon. During the Third War of Armageddon, Yarick actually had a personal Baneblade, which he named, and this is the most badass name for a tank I have ever heard, the Fortress of Arrogance. Man has his own personal Baneblade with his own pulpit on the turret of the goddamn thing, where he can command the troops of Armageddon from. This is the most over-the-top thing. For 40K standards, mind you. I love it to death. Look at this thing. It's so good. It's literally the Fortress of Arrogance. My God, Yarick. Now, when I say that Yarick was, when Yarick was respected by Ghazghul, I'm not even kidding. During the Third War of Armageddon, Ghazghul opened the Third War of Armageddon by targeting and destroying Hades' Hive from orbit. Because he knew that it was Yarick that helped turn the tide for the War of Armageddon. And he knew it was at Hades' Hive where Yarick started the defense of Armageddon. So Ghazghul, being Ghazghul, said, fine, I'm going to send a message to old man Yarick that I ain't afraid of him. And he annihilated Hades High from orbit. Yarick came back to Armageddon to help head up the defense for the third war of Armageddon because this planet doesn't catch a fucking break. And he was the one who helped to once again bring the fight to Ghazghul and is invading Wa once again. Ghazghul himself challenging Yarick to single combat because he respected Yarick that much. Remember, in Orc society, in Orc society, the only thing they respect is strength, and in Ghazghul's eyes, Yarick was his personal rival, which is fucking absolutely ridiculous when you think about it that way. Ghazghul, eventually, towards the end of the Third War of Armageddon, decided to pull away from the planet, regroup his forces, try again at another point, because he knew Armageddon had to fall before his wall could span the entire galaxy. He fled the planet with his remaining forces. The Black Templars, Space Marines chapter, under the command of their High Marshal Helbricht, made a crusade fleet ready to pursue Ghazghul. Yarick went up to Helbricht personally and petitioned High Marshal Helbricht, a chapter master of the Space Marines, "Take me with you. I have unfinished business with Ghazghul." And Helbricht said yes. So not only does Yarick have the respect of the orcs, one of the most powerful orc warlords in the galaxy, he has enough respect of a Space Marine chapter master to be like, yeah, come with us, let's go kick some orc ass. Like, Jesus. Good Lord. Oh my Lord. They almost got him too. They almost cornered. They almost cornered and almost defeated Ghazghul, but he escaped. But now, in what's it called? In the latest Imperial Guard Codex, it is said that the Bell of Lost Souls, which is a monument to all of the heroes lost in the Imperium service, it is said that the Bell of Lost Souls on Terra told specifically for Commissar Sebastian Yarick. But the details of his supposed death are fuzzy at best. So there's a lot of people who are thinking maybe he's not dead. Maybe he's just missing in action. Who knows? Right? And if anything, I personally think he's not dead. He's got to have at least one showdown remaining with Ghazghul, right? This was the dude who literally was single-handedly almost made me play Guard. Because of just that backstory was so fucking good. Holy shit. That backstory was so damn good. Holy moly. But yeah, let's look at all the different iterations of the Commissar are so goddamn good. I love them. They're all great. That coat, it's the overcoat. What can I say? It's the fucking overcoat. Let's see here. There are others. There are two specific things I do want to go over. before we wrap up. And there are two more specific things about the Imperial Guard I want to go over. I can't seem to find them. Where are they? Oh, you know what? Maybe I have to search for it specifically, don't I? Okay, give me a second. Give me a moment, chat. I'm gonna have to look for it. Yes. Okay. I have to talk about this specific aspect of the Imperial, not just the Imperial Guard, but the Imperial Army in general. Abhumans. Now, the setting of Warhammer 40K being the setting of Warhammer 40K, specifically within the Imperium of Mankind, it is no secret that the Imperium of Mankind is totalitarian. It is xenophobic. It is not a good place to live at all. You know, suffer not the alien to live, purge the mutant, kill the heretic, etc., etc. Right? Right. So, what does that entail? What does that entail exactly for humans who are not quite human? Abhumans is the term for that. So, as an overview, abhumans are human subspecies, descendants of humans who have physically evolved after long periods of isolation on worlds with various extreme environmental conditions. The Imperium recognizes 73 stable abhuman strains, of which 46 types are now listed as extinct, with a further 12 suggesting that they have died out or have been assimilated into the greater population. Right? In an Imperium where genetic mutation and spiritual corruption are both interrelated, abhumans are a focus of much controversy. In more liberal times under the Emperor, even markedly divergent abhumans such as beastmen could serve in the ranks of the Imperial Guard. Since the Emperor's stasis in the Golden Throne, however, only the lesser deviants such as Ogren and Ratlings are considered true Imperial citizens. However, they are still distrusted by the more puritanical members of the Inquisition. So these three, I'm not going to go into all of them, but there are three in particular that either have served alongside Imperial Guard regiments or still serve alongside Imperial Guard regiments. We'll start with the Beastmen. Humans, for whatever reason, for one reason or another, have evolved bestial traits. Fur-like hair, fangs, horns, cloven feet. Mutations brought about by exposure to the warp or exposure to whatever planet they just happened to settle on, right? 9 times out of 10, Beastmen are a result of what happens when a human is exposed to the energies of the warp. And as a result, specifically in this case of Zangors, which are basically Tzeentch cultists, they're mutated to the point where they can have no loyalty other than to chaos itself. However, some Beastmen, instead of being mutations of chaos, occur naturally for whatever reason, be it exposure to some sort of toxic chemical or what have you. Regardless, Beastmen try and live their lives away from humans because they don't want trouble. They just want to live. They just want to survive. Back in the day, there were entire Imperial Guard regiments of Beastmen. You know, because, they may look like they're not human, but you know, they are still technically human, maybe just an offshoot of humans, right? But more commonly in the current timeline of Warhammer 40K, there are 2 strains of abhuman that serve specifically within the ranks of the Imperial Guard, one as snipers and the other as either bodyguards or shock troops. They are the Ogryn and the Ratlings. I'm going to start with the Ogryn. Physically, much larger and stronger than your normal human. The trade-off being, they're not too smart. Let me put it this way. Let me put it to you this way, chat. Let me put it to you this way. There you are, Nork. The most well-known Ogryn in the Warhammer 40K timeline is an Ogryn who actually has a name and who can repeat his own name back to you. Nork Deadog. And he is a very, very smart Ogryn. He's smart for an Ogryn. How smart is he, chat? He can count to 4. Most Ogryn can't make it past 2. Nork can count all the way to 4 without using his fingers. It sounds like an awful, awful joke, but that is literally what's written in his lore. That's literally what's written in the fucking codex entry for Nork. Ogryn serve the role. Yo, you leave that sweet boy alone. I'm just repeating what's in the lore tab, Makazi. Okay. Ogryn serve 2 roles in an Imperial Guard regiment that will allow them to serve, right? Ogryn will serve 2 roles as either shock troops or bodyguards, which is the role that Nork served. He was a bodyguard for a general. Ogryn can also be used to breach enemy fortifications or just send them directly at enemy units. They are hulking, massive shock troops. They've got mauls. They've got little shields to keep them safe. Just basically point them at an enemy and tell them to go break some skulls, and they'll do it if they're well trained enough. Ogryn can also sometimes serve as heavy weapons teams or members of heavy weapons teams, being strong enough to carry a heavy weapon by themselves. Another rank of Ogryn, known as a Bulgryn, further serve as shock troops because they have these massive slab shields and what is known as a Grenader gauntlet, which is literally a gauntlet that goes over their fist, which can serve as a club to bash people's heads in, and oh yeah, has a built-in grenade launcher. But the most iconic piece of Ogryn weaponry is this weapon right here, which is called a Ripper gun. It is basically a fully automatic shotgun that's big enough and robust enough to handle being used by an Ogryn. Because Ogryn are very simple-minded, they like loud, flashy things, which is exactly what a Ripper gun is supposed to sound like. It's loud, it's boisterous, the muzzle flash is really, really bright, but at the same time, keep in mind, it's still a fully automatic combat shotgun. So, like, you tell them to point the flashy end at the enemy, they'll do it, and they'll laugh as the enemy explodes into a fine pink mist. Ogryn, they are very much kind of like one-dimensional in how they're deployed, but they hit like a fucking truck. Like, legitimately, they hit like a fucking truck. And in squads of Ogrins, one Ogryn who has shown particular aptitude in being kind of smart they undergo what is known as the bone procedure, and those Ogryn that survive the procedure are known as boneheads or boneheads. Biochemical Ogryn neural enhancement, BONE, or bone, literally is the procedure to make an Ogryn smarter. And once you do that, once you have a bonehead, there's your squad leader for a squad of Ogryn. It's actually kind of hilarious. It's really, really funny. Have they been changing the lore on Ogryn? They seem a bit smarter in Darktide. They do, honestly. They do seem a bit smarter in Darktide. I think it's explained that the Ogryn in Darktide have been specifically taught to be a bit smarter, just so they can handle weaponry and can handle commands, follow commands on the fly instead of having to be, basically led into battle by something else entirely. Which I don't mind, honestly. I don't mind. But yeah, that is one of the two abhumans that are allowed in general in most Imperial Guard regiments. The other being ratlings. Short, stunted humans. They're basically hobbits in the 41st millennium, but they are literally some of the best snipers in an Imperial Guard regiment. They are some of the best snipers, period, in a human-based army. Ratlings are the smallest type of abhuman, their ancestors having become stunted by thousands of years of inbreeding on worlds with naturally soporific climates and abundant harvests. Ratlings are short and squat, although not strong. They're idle, hedonistic, gregarious, overly friendly, and sexually promiscuous. I forgot about that last part. Their lives are spent eating until sick, drinking copious amounts of intoxicating liquids, and procreating uncontrollably. Like I said, physically not that strong. They're only 3 feet high at the tallest, right? But as I've mentioned, they are some of the best goddamn snipers an Imperial Guard army will ever have the chance to employ. Right? They make for great scouts because they can infiltrate in. It's they can infiltrate in because of their small size. They can infiltrate onto different areas of the battlefield, get really good sniping positions, and just start popping heads with what is they have rifles of their own make. They're called needle rifles. They literally fire off a sharpened needle spike, which is ridiculous, and I love it. I really, really love it. They are and here's the thing. Here's the really busted thing. With most snipers in 40K, right? You have to take them solo. Or at the very least, maybe 2 people at most on a sniper team. Like a sniper and then a spotter. You can take entire squads of ratlings. I don't remember how many ratlings you can have in a squad. I believe it's maximum 10? Question mark? But that's a squad of 10 snipers. Holy Jesus. And they're really, really good at it too. Good Lord Almighty. They're really, really good at it. And my favorite thing about about ratlings rather, one of my favorite things about ratlings too is the fact that in addition to being really, really good snipers and really, really good scouts, another thing that ratlings are incredibly adept at. 10 sounds about right. Yeah. Eldar got them Rangers though. Also true. Eldar Rangers are another beast entirely. another thing that Ratlings are actually very, very good at is being the regiment's cook, or cooks, if there's enough Ratlings there. Because they're basically hobbits, they're basically the grimdark version of hobbits. They love food, they love alcohol, they love sharing food with not just themselves, but with everybody else, right? Which makes them, like any regiment that happens to employ Ratling snipers, because keep in mind, they're not regimental regulars, they're basically mercenaries. Any regiment that happens to employ Ratlings will be some of the best fed regiments in the entire war zone because of said Ratlings. Like, for example, look. Some rallies take advantage of their position as company cooks to acquire extra supplies to sate their voracious appetites. Others extend these benefits to their foster regiments for a price, their kitchens serving as fronts for their illegal activities. Their abilities as thieves and black marketeers find their acceptance from the men they serve alongside as they offer a wide range of goods, from extra rations to drugs and alcohol, and maybe some non-standard issue weapons, which are common amongst veteran soldiers. If you're playing Guard, if I was playing Guard, and I needed a group of snipers, I would absolutely take a unit of Ratlings in with my army list. 100%. Take a full 10-man strong unit of Ratlings. Would take them every time. Every single time. But yeah, those are the only two abhumans that most Imperial Guard regiments will allow. I say most Imperial Guard regiments, not all, because Imperium of Man, terribly xenophobic place, as you can probably tell. So yeah, friends, ladies, gentlemen, and non-binary pals, that concludes this episode of Warhammer 40K Lore Deep Dive. We are done with the Astra Militarum, aka the Imperial Guard, and all their flavors of tanks and extra units and all that jazz. Whew. We are slowly but surely working our way through 40K lore. We've done a general overview of 40K lore. We've covered Space Marines, we've covered Orcs, and now we've covered Imperial Guard. I think we're gonna keep that pattern because we've been going Imperial, then non-Imperial, and then Imperial again. So we're gonna branch out and cover a non-Imperial aligned faction the next time we dive into Warhammer 40K Lore Deep Dive. Do I have the VOD saved somewhere? Yes, I do, Makazi. They are all on my YouTube page, actually. Let me pull up the specific playlist for you. Because this VOD is also going up on that playlist, by the way. I'm going to try and get it edited, like shortened tonight, and then put it on YouTube so it'll drop tomorrow. Give me a moment. I want to grab that specific playlist for you. Also, sub to my YouTube channel if you're not already there. Appreciate it. Okay, found it. Here we go. Here is the current playlist where all of the previous episodes of Warhammer 40K Lore Deep Dive are stored. So, like I said, we've gotten through a general overview. We've covered Space Marines. We've covered Orcs, and now we've covered Imperial Guard. So, like I mentioned earlier, we're gonna continue that pattern. We're gonna cover a non-Imperial aligned faction the next time we or the next time we have a stream like this, another Warhammer 40K Lore Deep Dive. As a matter of fact, let me pull out my list. So you know who we're going to cover next time? Next time, on the next episode of Warhammer 40K Lore Deep Dive. I have a question for you, chat. Have you heard of the greater good? The next Warhammer 40K Lore Deep Dive stream, we're going to be talking about one of the more contentious races in the realm of Warhammer 40K. We're going to be talking about the Tau Empire, one of the newest Xenos species to make their mark in the galaxy, in the timeline of Warhammer 40K. I see a lot of oh no's in chat right now. Listen, all I'm gonna say is if you thought the Imperium of Man was bad, wait until we cover the Tau. Just wait until we cover the Tau Empire, y'all. Jesus Christ.